Hello and welcome to Inside the Folder, a podcast that takes a look at a series of shorts I created called the Steele Dossiers. I am your host, Francesco Di Francesco. In this episode, I'm going to look at, hold on a second, aren't you going to introduce me? What? Yeah, introduce me. I was in the short film that this podcast is based on. You're not going to introduce me? Fine. Hello, folks. My name is Frank Di Francesco, and I played the Doppelganger in the short Seeing Doppel. Yes, that's right. This podcast will take a look at the Steele Dossiers short entitled Seeing Doppel. And before I get into that, before I break down the Doppelganger mythology, let me first say, no, it's only me here on the show. I've never actually met my doppelganger, and no, I don't have a twin. That was just me doing two voices to emphasize that there's doppelgangers are just doubles. Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, moving on. Let's move on. But I will say, what a guest. I should be having a guest on next week's show, and I hope everyone looks forward to that. And no, it won't be me doing another voice. It will be an actual guest. First guest for me to have on the show. So yeah, now let's get into the mythology of the doppelganger. Because, they look like us, they act like us, but what truly is a doppelganger? Well, the word doppelganger is a German word that literally translates to double walker. It is a biologically unrelated lookalike or double of a living person. In some cases, the doppelganger is the exact double right down to the way the person walks, acts, talks, and dresses. It's pretty much almost like a carbon copy. These doppelgangers can either be seen in a solid form, or they have been known to see in sort of like a ghostly spiritual apparatus kind of form. What's tricky about these doppelganger sightings is it could kind of be like, it's like a weird form of deja vu, I would say. Instead of it happening to the individual itself, it happens to other people. But there's a lot to get into that. There's a lot to dive in there. It could be a great debate one day. But I'm just going to speak about the doppelganger as being, as I mentioned earlier, a double of some sorts. So, sightings and reports of doppelgangers have been around for centuries, and a great deal of superstition has been developed around them. Typically, doppelgangers are viewed as sinister or evil entities, and seeing one has also been considered an omen of misfortune or bad luck. So I will say, if you ever encounter a doppelganger of yourself, just be wary that there could be some sort of bad luck to you. In some ancient stories, I shouldn't say ancient, but in some stories it has been associated with death, and then in other stories it just has been associated with some bad luck, and some of it's just been foretelling like future events. All right, so don't get completely scared if you see a double of yourself. Although it's interesting in the acting profession, because there's stunt doubles, and there's if you go into an audition room, and they're looking for people who are 5'8" with black hair, bushy eyebrows. They're all gonna look the same in some sort of fashion. Maybe slight differences, but doppelgangers are the exact sort of copy of the individual it's portraying. And speaking of those sort of omens, and just to lessen that kind of mood if you're worried, there's been some reports of doppelgangers today that show they're neither sinister nor evil, nor do they herald streaks of bad luck, but they're still known to cause some mischief. So be on the lookout in case something's missing. It could have been potentially your doppelganger who took it. But otherwise, they just seem to be going about their business as if they are normal human beings. So a doppelganger is not that bad after all, or could they be? Many stories, many stories. I will say there is one story that I have come across. It was written by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Hopefully I pronounced his last name right. In his autobiography called Poetry and Truth, this was like 1800s, running around the 1800s. He writes the story, and I'm going to read it word per word here. So before I get into the story, he was going to see his mistress, Frederica, and this is the story of him, the encounter afterwards, just to set that up. So let me just read this from here. Those were painful days, the memory of which has not remained with me. When I reached for her hand from my horse, the tears stood in her eyes, and I felt very uneasy. I now rode along the footpath towards Drossenheim, and here one of the most singular foreboding took possession of me. I saw, not with the eyes of the body, but with those of the mind, my own figure coming towards me, on horseback, and on the same road, attired in a dress which I had never worn. It was pike grey, with somewhat of gold. As soon as I shook myself out of this dream, the figure had entirely disappeared. It is strange, however, that 8 years afterward, I found myself on the very road to pay one more visit to Frederica, in the dress of which I had dreamed and which I wore, not from choice, but by accident. However, it may be with the matters of this kind generally, this strange illusion in some measure calmed me at the moment of parting. So that's a story where he saw himself dressed in this different attire that he's never owned or seen before. And when he did a double take, the doppelganger disappeared. And then 8 years later, he managed to be walking down that same road in that same attire that he mentioned and saw himself in. So this is almost like it's almost like a time-traveling doppelganger, which again, this is perceived as one of the most benign and reassuring doppelganger stories out there. There has been some doppelganger stories where a man saw his wife drown in like one time of the day, and then when he went home, his child, when his wife was giving birth, it gave birth to a stillborn. So you can see how many stories it relates to. But as I mentioned earlier, it could be like doppelgangers could be a form of deja vu. It could be good, it could be bad. But as I mentioned, I'm just going to stick with being the double. As I mentioned earlier as well, the sightings have been around for centuries. In ancient Egypt, a Ka was a tangible spirit double, having the same memories, feelings as the person to whom the counterpart belongs. In Norse mythology, a Vardogr is a ghostly double who is seen performing the person's actions in advance. This one would be more deja vu like, because this double will show itself to friends and family of the person, and those people will get confused when the actual person arrives and does the same sort of thing. So this is where that whole deja vu part of the mythology comes from. And then last but not least, the Irish folklore, which as I mentioned in other, the only one I did so far was Bigfoot. Undertaker is not really and the werewolves. Like I said, there's many different, depending on the region you're in, it's somewhat similar with different twists. So in the Irish folklore, it's called a fetch, which refers to a psychopath who fetches the souls of the dying. So going back to the whole mythology of the doppelganger, this one is when the person sees the double of themselves, that double is there to collect their soul afterwards. With that said, that is it for the doppelganger mythology that I have. I'm going to cut to a clip, since I spoke about The Undertaker. I'm going to cut to a clip of The Undertaker versus The Undertaker from SummerSlam 94. Here's that little clip, and once I return, we'll go right into the Seeing Doppel short.
And look at the look on Ted DiBiase's face. He cannot believe what he is seeing. cannot believe that sight right there, McMahon. Yeah, it's like looking in a mirror. Which one is that? They're identical. No, they're not identical. I think there is only one true Undertaker. And we're about to find out which one there is.
Welcome back. Yes, The Undertaker fought his doppelganger and won to become the one and only true Undertaker. Now, let's move on to the Steele Dossiers short, Seeing Doppel. This was actually the third short my sister and I filmed, and we both agreed that it should be the fourth or fifth short released so that the audience could get to know the Arthur Steele character first before bringing on an evil double of him. So that's why we picked it to be released the fourth short film out. Also, because it was just me and my sister, I had to think of creative ways to bring other characters into the Steele Dossiers while just having the both of us at the time. And I thought the Doppelganger mythology would work perfectly, simply because I could play two different characters of the same. Since I'm playing the main character, it's simple enough to do a double of the main character and have me play it. This is also another reason why my sister plays all those mysterious parts. It's an easy way to hide her like sort of face from camera, where she can play multiple different roles of mysterious person's arm or actual character that has a mask covering her face. So that was sort of the creative ways we could do it, considering it was just her and I at the time. Also, with this short, since it was the third one, I wanted to bring something different. As you noticed in the previous shorts, Steele was always mostly at his desk. So I wanted to write something. This was the first one where I wanted to write something where Steele is not at his desk. Like, why does he always have to be at his desk? And just to change it up a little. Because if you notice, when you watch Seeing Doppel, there's actually no desk shot in there. It's just all outdoors. And since this was the third one filmed, it was filmed right after the Phenon short. And this was the first haircut I got when the barbershops reopened again. And I was super excited to have this haircut because I like my hair short. I don't like it long. Even some people are like, even when it's long, it doesn't look that long. No, I like my hair short. So I was super excited to get that done. And then to film this one, I think when you watch me sitting at the bench there in Seeing Doppel, that's me sitting in my, I got sort of what I like to call my power back with my haircut. So this is the first time you see me with a haircut with shorter hair as Arthur Steele in here. When I wrote the script, I originally wanted to call it Seeing Double, but it didn't have such a great ring to it. Plus, I didn't want to give away that the first character you see in this is a double. I kind of wanted to play around with the audience of like, could this be Arthur Steele? So that's why I called it Seeing Doppel. It sounded, not only that, it sounded better to me. And what's hilarious is Doppel is the German word that translates to double. So I didn't really change anything, really. I just changed... I just put one English word with one German word, and that was it. Plus also Doppel, beginning of Doppelganger. So Seeing Doppel, I just think it's a fun little play on words there. As always, each short starts off with the intro video, as I talked about in the first podcast. If you haven't heard that, you can always go back and check that out. But then it goes into the traditional title card screen for Seeing Doppel. And this is probably my second favorite title card. As you can see, obviously I did everything doubled on there, the upside down font for the title, and the head silhouette, I just duplicated it and flipped it and placed both images side by side to give it that two-way looking effect. And as I said, this is probably the second favorite one after Howl at the Moon title card. So the short opens up with a mysterious person carrying an instrument case. Of course, this is my sister playing this mysterious character. I should mention that it was a nice hot day and she wore a somewhat heavy jacket for this one shot. And as you know, if you worked in film, you can never always get it in one shot. Well, you get it in one shot, but you do another one for safety. And we did quite a few of these shots. It was actually me holding. So okay, she goes to drop it off onto the bench, and sitting beside that bench is supposed to be me. But as I mentioned many times, it was only her and I. So I was filming, and I had to make sure that when she walks to drop it off, you don't see the other bench and no one sitting there. But once we got the shot down right, it came out beautifully, and I'm sure she was happy to take off that coat in that hot weather. But moving on. So as I said, I wanted the audience to at first think this is Steele just in a different attire, which is why you hear the Doppelgangers voiceover throughout this. But as I said in the previous podcast, there is a little kind of hints that I drop into everything I do that I leave. For instance, if you notice, the Doppelganger is not wearing a ring, and there is no cigarette in his mouth. So that should be a dead giveaway that this is not Steele. This is absolutely not Steele, especially the ring. If there's a cigarette or cigar, you can be like, it could still be Steele. But because there's no ring, it is not Steele, or Steele is off doing something else, which we'll see in a future episode, which I'll explain. Actually, it will probably be the next episode, which I'll explain. So yeah, I leave those kind of little things in there. And I also knew that the Doppelganger had to be the sinister, evil version of Arthur Steele. And since I have a mafia type look already, like my regular kind of face, it would be best to dress the Doppelganger like a mobster and make him a hitman. So that's why he's wearing all black with a white tie. As well, here's a little mistake. This one's an actual mistake. In my shirt pocket there is a cue card. And on that cue card, I had a list of shots that I wanted to get and the area I had to get. I unfortunately forgot it was in my shirt pocket when we went to go film. And then when we went to go film another scene, I checked the footage and I went, oh, I left that in my pocket. So I'm going to keep that in the pocket. It doesn't look bad. It looks like it fits the character anyways. So that's I left it in there. And so where we filmed this, it's off the Beltline. I do many things on the Beltline Trail because I like the Beltline Trail. And so this is one pathway off the Beltline Trail, but still connected to the Beltline Trail. And where we were, there's not a lot of human traffic going by on bikes or walking by. But the way the camera was set up on the tripod and where I was sitting, there was like a little bit of space, all right? A little bit of space. And on the other side, we weren't blocking. It was a big pathway, so we're not even blocking half of it. We're blocking like a quarter of this pathway. And there was this lady who was coming on a bike, all right? So instead of going around us, she decides to go right between the camera and the bench. And then she gives us a look like we were interfering in her bike riding. And both my sister and I just kind of looked at each other and kind of went, piss off, lady. You could have went around. There was nobody coming the other way. There's so much free space. You could have parked 5 cars on the other side of this pathway, but she decided to go in between us and give us a dirty look. But I will say this. I do stick by this saying that I've learned. Pedestrians hate drivers. Drivers hate pedestrians. But pedestrians and drivers both hate cyclists because they don't follow the rules of the road. And I love to ride my bike, but I follow the rule of the road. And lady, I'm pretty sure you're not listening to this. But yeah, as I said, me and my sister said piss off. And you're a horrible person. Anyways, moving on now. because that was the first scene. The first scene is Doppelganger gets his kind of work that he needs to do, and then it goes into the montage. Now this montage, all these locations are in a proximity of each other, so didn't have to travel far for that. The first one you see is the tunnel. That was simple, straightforward. It's still this spot is still somewhat connected to the Beltline Trail. The trail does go over a major road at one point, and this is the bridge portion, and the tunnel is the sidewalk to this major road. So all I did was told my sister to place the camera here, started all the way on the other side of this tunnel, and just walked through it. And then because I knew I was cross dissolving to the next shot, I thought it would be interesting to have the Doppelganger almost walk right into camera. So that's what I did. I literally walked right into camera to get that shot, to do the cross dissolve, and the way it came out was wonderful. I loved it. Then we move on to the fence. Now this fence, my sister and I like to go hiking and walking, and whenever we explored certain areas, we kind of like to explore areas that we haven't discovered, and this is one of those areas. On one of our walks we discovered, and I went, this is a pretty cool, like, sort of little shot to do. And I went, yeah, let's just have the Doppelganger walk through here all menacing like. And luckily enough we did that, because I think it was the week after where they fixed this fence. So this fence is off of like a dead end industrial road, I would say. And then on the other side it leads to a parking lot, which was Home Depot, Tim Hortons. I think it's just Home Depot and Tim Hortons there. But you could tell, like, this fence was broken in, well, not broken, but like it was cut open. That way the people in the dead end can easily go through the parking lot, can easily go through the fence, through the parking lot to Tim Hortons to get like a coffee or food, as opposed to otherwise, if that fence is closed off, they would have to go around using the roads. And it's not like it's a 5-minute walk to go around, but it's almost like a good 20 minutes to go around. So it's better, like, what do you want to do, 20 minutes? If you're on your break at work on this industrial spot, what do you want to do, 20 minutes on a 30-minute break? Or would you want to 5 minutes, you're in and out? But yeah, as I said, they fixed it ever since then. As I was doing this walk, there were some people hanging out in the parking lot, because, you know, the cool kids hang out in the parking lot. But as I was walking, they were kind of looking, because, you know, I'm dressed all in black. I'm carrying this small instrument case, and I look menacing. So they kind of, you know, they're joking, ha ha ha. Then one of them spots me, and then all of a sudden they get really quiet, and I just chuckle every time I see that. And then last but not least, the train tracks, which again, to get to, is a little pathway off the belt line as well. Got to the train tracks. If you notice, there's shoes on the tracks. Those are actually my shoes. I want it to look like there's somebody lying there, without actually having somebody lying there. So I just took off the shoes I was wearing that day, put back my running shoes on, put my dress shoes up against the rail of the train tracks there, and filmed it that way. And when the Doppelganger aims his gun directly in the center of the frame, I did that as a reference to the 1903 film, The Great Train Robbery, where the cowboy aims directly at camera and he starts firing the gun. So that's why I had that shot. And my sister had to lie down on sort of like somewhat of a gravelly kind of area as she was holding the camera. And I knew, because I wanted to get this shot done quickly, practiced it a couple of times of like, where's the center screen? Where's the center screen? Once my sister told me, like, okay, you have to stop there. All right, roll. And then I did it, and it ended up where it ends up now. And I think it comes out great. And last but not least, the ending to this, the reveal ending to this, that it's not actually Arthur Steele. For this ending, I did shoot the Doppelganger stuff first, of him just walking through that path, simply because, you know, I'm already dressed up as the Doppelganger. Might as well do all that first before I dress up as Arthur Steele. So did all that first. And if you noticed during the voiceovers, because Steele's voiceover comes in, and Steele says, I have garlic and holy water on hand in case things go south. So Steele was actually on a case of vampires, which it wasn't planned, but it kind of makes sense now. which is almost because the third one was about werewolves, and there was supposed to be a Dracula vampire in the werewolf one, Stokes Castle. But when he says that, that's almost like a continuation, even though it was unplanned. But it's a good little continuation as he's on a case for vampires, and then he he sees his doppelganger walk by, and he immediately says Doppelganger. Now, what's good is because I laid out that the doppelgangers could be, a vision of the future, or it could be an evil twin, could be anything like that. So I'm not going to say what this doppelganger is. I'm going to leave it just in case somewhere down the line bring it back up. That's it for some crazy credits for seeing Doppel. I wouldn't say crazy, but fun credits where I use my full name as Arthur Steele in the credits as Francesco Di Francesco. Then for the doppelganger, because Francesco translates to Frank in English, so for the doppelganger I did Frank Di Francesco, to make it look like, is it the same person? Like, what's going on there? And I kept the mysterious person as I have no clue as more mysterious, because it's good to have a mystery, even though it was my sister playing it. But she does get credited on IMDb, so that's good. I will say Seeing Doppel is probably my favorite short out of the series. I just like it. I like all the shorts, but this is probably my favorite one out of the first season. I have to rewatch the new ones I did, all the recent 4 ones, to see which one is my favorite there. But this one I really enjoyed doing, filming, editing. It was good to do. This one is, I would also say, my prized winning short. In the 2020 fall edition of the Alternative Film Festival, it won Best Suspense Thriller, and I was also nominated for Best Actor at that same festival. And then also at the 2020 Couch Film Festival, Seeing Doppel won Best Thriller in the 1 to 5 minute category. So obviously my most prized winning one. That's it for Seeing Doppel. I will say, if you are watching / listening to this on YouTube, you are getting this a week or 2 weeks later after the fact that this episode has been released. Normally, I release these a week or 2 earlier on all of the other platforms, such as Spotify, Rumble, and I will say, I just got word that now Inside the Folder podcast is now available on Google Podcasts, so you can check it out there as well. Great stuff coming along. I did mention that next week I will have a guest. I can't wait to have a guest on, to have somebody else talk as I'm doing this, and yeah, every time there's someone in one of the shorts, I'm gonna have a guest. Unfortunately, I couldn't get Yulia for the last one, but yeah, this one I'll definitely have a guest. And then I'm going to leave you off with this doppelganger quote. It says, "They say when you meet somebody that looks just like you die." So with that said, no matter where you're listening, watching this, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. You know what? Smile. My soul will feel the smile, even though I'm not physically there. And with that said, thank you for watching, listening, and as well, nothing in this world is what you think it is.